Oh yeah, Jessica, you like this music?
Oh yeah. It's
Woo!
actually my favorite song.
I usually do some improv, but I'm really bad at like freestyling. So,
Like
um,
rapping?
yeah, like I'll do like like some like freestyle, just whatever pops in my head. Sometimes it's kind of awkward and it doesn't make sense, but like let's see if I can. Let's maybe I'll give you a little bit of example. I've done this before and I've usually butchered it, but here we go. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, when it starts to come in, I'll start to freestyle a little bit. So I went out to the wall. I went out to and did them all. This makes no sense. Yes, it does. But we're having fun. Yes, because. See, like,
No, I love it.
it made no sense. Like, but hey, I had fun with it. That's the most important thing, right?
Exactly.
You want to try it, or
Oh, absolutely not. That's all you.
yeah. I need to work on that because like I don't think I have the funk or the jive to pull it off. But
I feel like, but you're like on beat, like your words rhymed, so there's that. They didn't make sense, but they
yeah,
rhymed.
there you go. I do write some rock alternative like punk music, so
Mhm.
maybe that helps me a little bit. But no, but Jessica, we're super excited to have you on the podcast today. As kind of start off, like where are you coming from? Where are you stationed at right now?
Oh, that's like probably the hardest question for me because I can kind of move around a lot. I'm originally from Philadelphia,
Oh, cool.
and God, if I were to count, I've probably lived in like 7 or 8 different states at this point.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah,
Wow.
so I'm a little bit of a gypsy soul. I move around a whole lot, but right now I'm out of South Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So where did you like originally like grow as a little little kid growing up? Were you in a spot like more than a couple years or?
We were primarily in the suburbs of Philly when I was growing
Okay.
up until like right before high school for me, and then we moved out to the Midwest to Indiana.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
but most of my childhood was suburbs of Philly.
Oh, cool. So when you
hmm
compare like the East to the Midwest, like what do you like better?
Definitely the East Coast better.
Yeah.
Definitely the East Coast. It's just more my vibe. But West Coast honestly is my favorite.
Oh, like
Right
California?
after, yeah, well, right after college, I moved to Vegas,
Oh,
and I
cool.
was there for 4-ish years, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that I mean, obviously, like, how could you not love living in Vegas?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and obviously we're stationed out of like Utah County, so we're only like what 5 hour drive from there. So
yeah.
all the Saints up in Utah go down there to do the sinning in Vegas.
And then they go
It's more
back
like
and pray it all
yeah,
away.
yeah, and then come back and then repent later. Yeah, what was Vegas like? Was it? I mean, obviously it's super hot there during the summer, but
Yeah,
it's like a different hot. It's like a dry heat, right?
it's really dry. It's like if you open up your oven, like you're taking out a batch of cookies, like that's what it feels like in Vegas, like all through July, August, just beating down on you. But if
Yeah,
you're in a
yeah,
pool, then it's fine.
yeah, exactly. You gotta make sure you have a pool while you're out there. So
Yeah.
what did you do when you were in Vegas?
So I was initially working at PR agencies. So that's what my degree is in. It's marketing and public
Oh,
relations.
sweet, cool.
hmm And it was okay. Um, I just found that like I'm really not the kind of person who should be like sitting down in front of a computer all day. Like I just go stir crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear you. I hear you.
yeah, and I think I was with 3 different agencies. The third one I actually was doing more of freelance. I was working from home with them, and I liked that better because I literally would take trips all over the place and just set my
Yeah,
work in.
yeah,
And
that's
then I
cool.
realized like, oh, it's not like the specific agencies. It's me. I need something that's a little bit more, free flowing.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm
I hate sitting behind a desk all day, and you're just like sitting at a computer screen, just getting fatter, snacking, and you're just like, I need to get out. I need to, I need to get some
Yeah.
fresh air. Yeah, that's why I like this job too. Like it's nice to get out and just like be outside, get to
hmm
get to know people. It's crazy all the different crazy experiences you have with this job, and we'll get into that probably a little bit later. But I
Yeah.
guess just to kind of go with your background a little bit, like, can you kind of where did you go to school, and then after school,
hmm
can you kind of tell us a little bit about what kind of? I mean, you told us a little bit about what you did as a freelancer, but Can you tell us about like after school and then kind of things that you did between school and now, and then how you arrived at this point with Embarc?
Yeah, yeah. So I went to school in Indiana, Indiana University, and like I said, it
Oh,
was a
sweet.
public relations and marketing like double.
Cool.
Um, and I I moved to Vegas in like the most goofy way. Basically, I like set up this Excel sheet of like a bunch of different cities that I thought would be interesting to live in. And I just applied to random jobs in all of those cities, and Vegas was the first one I got hired in. So I was like, okay, I guess we're moving to
Sweet.
Vegas.
Dude, this is gonna be a big
Yeah.
jump. Yeah.
So yeah, went out there and worked for three different two boutique marketing firms, and then the other company was an HR firm, but I was doing like public relations and marketing type stuff for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, I did enjoy it, and I learned a lot in terms of just I don't know the processes within those firms.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just too slow paced for me to really to see myself doing it long term.
Yeah. I kind of got bored of it.
Yeah, I got bored. That's the real way to put it. I got bored.
Yeah.
Um, and that third job, where I was doing a lot of writing for the HR company,
Hmm.
right when I was doing that, the pandemic started to happen, and so
Oh, okay.
I so I kind of stopped working for that. I stopped working in general for a little bit, um, and I actually ended up getting a job doing a work from home car sales job with
Oh,
car.
from
Yeah,
home.
so that was like the
Wow.
first real foray into sales, and I was really really good at that. But then I fell into the same issue of,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sitting at a desk all day and I really hate this. Like
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
really good
bored
at it, but
again.
I really hate it. So what do I do? And a friend of mine, she did door to door for a while with a solar company, and she was like,
Oh,
"Hey, yeah, I think you would like this a lot better. Like you're not going to be sitting down all the time. Like I know you know how to sell. Just like come out and try it for a little bit."
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think I tried it for like a week and then just immediately quit the
Yeah.
CarMax job. And then I've been in door to door ever since. It was about
Nice.
maybe 2 years ago.
So solar was your first door-to-door experience? Is that what you were doing? Were you a setter or closer, or where did you start off at?
I was a setter. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
Hmm.
And so how did that go? Like just knocking on random people's doors. How was that compared to just doing sales sitting at your computer? Was it at first was it a little nerve-wracking, and then how did you kind of mold yourself into like being comfortable with it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is nerve wracking because you're not, I mean,
Yeah.
like, we don't do that. No one just walks around neighborhoods
Yeah.
and, like, knocks on people's doors and talks to them. So it's like there is a little bit of, like, discomfort that you have to get over with that.
Yeah.
But honestly, at this point, it's just so routine. You know, like, obviously, the
Yeah.
first door of the day, I feel like is usually, like, the hardest one to get out
Uh-huh.
to. And then
You get
after that, you
anxiety.
just kind of, you're in a flow. Um, so yeah, that was a little bit awkward and different. And also, I think with the doors compared to with what I was doing with the car sales, you
Yeah.
definitely have to be more nimble in terms of how you're pitching, and because every single person that you're going to, uh, they're just going to take your message a little bit differently. They're
Yeah.
in a different part of their life, whereas with the car sales, it was a little bit more of a you were getting the same thing over and over again, so you could really just do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And I've had other jobs too where basically you get like some type of salary and then plus commissions or
Hmm.
hourly plus commissions. And when you go from like that to 100% commission, there's a little bit of like anxiety of like, okay, if I
Yeah.
don't perform today, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. So so yeah, it is like a little bit nerve-wracking. Like I do agree. And then once you get into your flow, like you were saying, and you start to kind of like have a love for the people and you start to get your flow and you start to find out your pitch and things start clicking, it's like, wow, why didn't I always do this? Like this is the best way to sell because the harder I work, right, the more reward I get. It's like
Yeah.
other jobs you can work harder than the next person next to you and you're gonna make the
It
same.
does.
But
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Yeah. And so when you went from that, like car salesman to 100% commission,
Hmm.
what did you like? Like, were there like any perks that you liked about just being on 100% commission? Like, can you talk a little bit about that pay
Yeah.
structure?
And honestly, I think that's probably the hard. one of the hardest parts for like new
Yeah.
people, right? Because you don't have a salary. So it's like if you don't
Yeah.
perform, then you're not getting paid, but then you'll psych yourself out and sort of like get a little bit desperate on the doors, and people
Yeah.
read that, and so it kind of turns into this like cycle of like, now I'm not getting paid because people think I'm desperate because I am desperate. So you
Yeah.
do have to like learn how to like be really really patient, and just relaxed on the doors, just kind of like be like a cool cucumber with it.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgot what the rest of the question was.
No, you're good. No,
I went on a tangent a little bit.
yeah, no, another thought came up of,
Hmm.
we all have our little like mind games we play with, on ourselves to keep ourselves motivated out there.
Hmm.
Cause, we've all been there, days where we're knocking and there just no success or little success.
Yeah.
And that mental game comes in and you start to like doubt yourself and you start
Yeah.
to get negative and you start to like hate everyone. Like anyone that answers the door, you're like, I hate you, just buy it. I have that bill I need to pay. And, you know, how do you keep yourself mentally focused when things
Mhm.
aren't going the way you intended them to go?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Because I had to figure that out for myself too, you know?
Yeah.
And if I find myself getting frustrated on the doors or getting frustrated with customers, I
Hmm.
literally just don't sell my next door. Like I literally will just go to a door and I'll just sit there and have a conversation with somebody and like tell them I like their cat or their dog or their flamingos in the yard, and literally just sit there and talk just so I can like remind myself that like these aren't bad people and like these
No.
aren't all jerks. Like they're just normal people, and like, maybe you get one or two, crummy apples, but like most people, like they're just
Yeah.
cool, normal people. They're willing to talk to you, and
Yeah.
it calms you down to kind of, I don't know, have that conversation with people, and then you can sell them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think, yeah, I totally agree with what you just said. And like sometimes you just got to take a breather and be like, these are normal people just like myself. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I put myself in like their shoes and kind of
Hmm.
almost pretend like what I would say if I was pitching myself and like what things I would want to hear from a rep. Because a lot of times, like when you're just focusing on yourself, like, oh, I gotta pay my bills, and you're all stressed out, it's like that's like a transfer of energy. And I think they can feel
Hmm.
that, and they're like, oh, this guy's like, he's not in it for me, he's in it for him or her.
Yeah.
And they'll probably pretty much say anything just to get me to buy. And now I'm not interested. But like you said, if you're
Exactly.
like a friend and kind of shoot the breeze, or like, hey, this is a normal person too, like just trying to help. And I think I can
Hmm.
open myself up to that. So yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your transition from doing solar to fiber. So what drew you into fiber cells? Is there anything you can talk about, like why you like fiber, selling fiber more than doing solar, like the pros of that?
Yeah. I think fiber, the thing with fiber is it's like it's so simple. It's
Yeah,
so straightforward. You know what I mean?
yeah,
With solar, obviously, there's a lot more components to it. There's, big loans and things attached to it or whatever.
yeah,
With fiber, it's like if people get it, then they get it, and if they don't, then you just kind of move on. It's just
yeah,
faster, cheaper internet at the end of the day. Like that's the whole pitch when you really boil it down. And so it makes it really, it makes it easier to get high volume with it, and you do have to be a little bit more high volume because of the commission structure, but it's not hard to get high volume with fiber.
for
So
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
it's something that everyone needs. It's like a utility, right? It's like everyone,
Hmm.
unless you're super old and you're just like, I'm not going to give into technology, You get
Live in a
those once
cabin
in
in
a
the
while
woods
where you're like, I'm like thrown off sometimes when I knock on a door and they're like, I don't have internet. I'm like, what? Like, how do you even communicate? They're like, I have my landline. I'm like, oh man, okay, yeah. I guess I'll move on then. So, no,
I
yeah.
was when I was selling solar, I actually had one woman tell me she didn't have electricity, and I was like, okay,
Did I
I
just
really don't
knock
know
an
what to do
Amish
with this.
community? Yeah, that would throw me off. I don't think I've ran into that before, unless they didn't just pay their bill or something. But yeah, I just totally agree with you. Like,
Yeah.
out of all the things I've done solar, I've done alarms,
Hmm.
I've done satellite TV. So internet is, like you said, it's like the most simple, easiest thing. It's like, what's the speed? What's the cost? And as
Hmm.
long as you can be friends with people and have it make sense, like most people don't really care which provider they're with. I mean, so it's going to come down to, customer service. That's important, but
Yeah.
it literally comes down to what's the price, what's the speed, and if they like you, and if those all align with each other, usually it's a pretty easy sell. So Yeah,
Exactly.
it's my favorite thing to sell, and that's awesome to hear you're taking. I totally agree. So basically, with selling fiber, is there anything that you don't like about it? Let's play the devil's advocate. Is there anything that you don't like about the job or
That's
selling
actually a good
fiber?
question. I haven't thought about that.
I usually
um,
don't ask like any to be negative, but sometimes it's good to pull out some like maybe some things that maybe reps struggle with that we can maybe do better, you know?
I mean, I feel like there's nothing that I don't
Mhm.
like about fiber that wouldn't apply to other door to door. Do you know what
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So just like the normal like crummy parts of any job where it's like, oh, like you're
yeah.
walking all day, sometimes you get tired or it's hot or somene's rude to you on the door, but like that would be the same with any other door to door job. There's nothing about
Exactly.
fiber that I'm like, well, this really sucks.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, I hate selling this. It is kind of a funny question because I was kind of thinking about it too, and I was like, it really isn't a whole lot that I don't like about
Yeah.
selling. I mean, obviously, door to door, it's not easy. I mean, or it's everyone would do it, right? And the
Mhm.
money is amazing if you're good at it, but
Mhm.
it is the grind of being out in the heat. There is the rejection that you get, there is the
Yeah.
mind games you get, but ultimately, like when you come home and you know that like, you did your best, you put it all out on the table, and you come home and you're like, wow, I just made like $1,000, $2,000 today, and that would have taken me like a week working at any other job, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that always feels really good.
like maybe I'll take a few days off because I made enough to. But yeah, let's actually go and look at the numbers. We're completely impressed with your numbers. There's been 153 reps selling Brightspeed.
Mhm.
It seems like Brightspeed's your number one go-to product to sell, right? Brightspeed.
Yeah, I sold Fidium for like a
Okay.
day and a half, but I think I've only
Okay.
done
Yeah. Yeah. So I love Brightspeed too. There's so many good things about it. We could talk about
Mhm.
that for a little bit, but I first want to go into like the numbers. So there's been 153 reps selling Brightspeed for Embarc. And out of the 153 reps, where do you think you stack up? Like what number do you think you are as far as top reps go?
Uh, I honestly have no idea. Um, I mean, it's starting from, I'm guessing January, right? So I started in March, so I don't
Yeah,
even
so
have a full
this actually
year.
goes back. This goes back like to November is when I pulled this report. So just to let you know, out of 153 reps, you're number 8 in the company in sales. So, and you're the top
That's
female in
nice.
the company right now.
That's
So
fabulous.
yeah, by more than 100 cells. So
By more than 100 sales.
yes,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
See,
So
you
right.
were telling me, you were like, you're really good. You should do this podcast. I was like, I don't know that I'm that good,
No, like you're no,
Jared.
like, seriously, you're the best female seller we have in the whole company right now.
That.
So yeah, and that's like we got to get Jessica on the podcast because she's awesome, and just by talking to you, I know why. You're definitely a people person. But yeah, 253 cells for the year, and number 8 in the company, and then the
God, I'm
next
at
female below you
$253.
is like 100 cells below you. So you're dominating right now. So
That's awesome. I love
so
that.
yeah, so super tons of props to you. You're killing it, and we love having you on board. So
Thanks.
yeah, that's super exciting. So as far as like going into a little bit of, I kind of want to talk a little bit about some maybe handling objections. I like to do a little like sales training on the
Hmm.
podcast just so we can kind of share some of these tidbits. I've been doing door to door for 20 years. I'm one of those OG dogs. Like I started when I was 21. I'm now 41. So I'm not always out on the doors like 100%, but a week out of the month, I like to go out and just crush it. It's like going back to what you say, just getting out of the office. Like there's something about getting that breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
But
it's really refreshing.
yeah, yeah. So it is nice to go out and travel. And I mean, I was just in Alabama last week and I had a blast. Like the people out there, I agree with you. I think the East, like South, is like the people are like so down to earth and super, super
Yes,
chill and so easy to talk to.
they're so
But
easy to talk to.
yeah,
The
yeah.
hospitality is real.
Yeah, the Southern hospitality is where it's at. So, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about objections. So there's a few I've
Mhm.
written down. Maybe we can take turns talking about how we handle some of these objections when we're out on the doors. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's say I'm a customer, and with Brightspeed, one of
Hmm.
the things that's required is auto pay, right? You've run into that
Hmm.
objection, right? Where they're like, oh, auto pay.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm an old woman, and I'm like, yeah, I just write out a check every month, and
Hmm.
yeah, I just get the bill and pay it with my checkbook.
Mhm.
I don't do anything on auto pay. How do you usually like respond to that and make people feel better about it?
Yeah, so what I typically will just say is, yeah, I know it's kind of frustrating that like everything's on auto pay now. We actually used to do credit checks, and a lot of the customers complained, so that's why they moved over to this system. But honestly, you can even do like a prepaid card or like a PayPal account. It'll still work, and then you can always change the card that's on file,
Yeah.
after you sign up and get your online account. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I love that. So I like kind of like how you kind of sympathize with them for a little bit. You're like, yeah, I know it's like sometimes it's a pain, but then went into like how to resolve that concern, and then you smash it where it's like not a big deal. It's pretty standard. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Yeah. So with auto pay, I'm like, yeah, it's everyone's doing it nowadays. It's we just make it easy. You don't even have to think about it. It's annoying trying to have to remember every single month. Oh, I got to pay it on this day, and if I'm late, then it makes it easy. So
Yeah.
all right. So how about the flyer? I
Mhm.
do you have a flyer or card? I just want to get back to you and think about it. So I'll take that
Mhm.
one.
Okay.
So usually I like to say something like, I'm not the flyer boy. I'm not the person going out handing out pamphlet, flyers and putting them in the doors. And
Mhm.
this is where I like to create urgency. Be like, listen, I'm
Mhm.
only here for a week because usually when I do my trips, I'm only there for a week. And
Yeah.
this past week, we had an incentive where you could only get the first month free, as if you did it through door to door, not through calling in.
Right.
So I'll
Really
usually
like
create,
that.
yeah. So that was some. So I'll always create urgency. Be like, listen, I'm only here for a couple days. I got my technicians. We all wear our construction vests. I don't know if you wear construction vests when you're out selling, but it's kind of nerdy. Do you wear one or?
I don't. And the thing is, I was like, it's kind of nerdy, so I'm not going to do it. But then I was working for like a week with Katie Rose, and she wore it, and she was like, every time I put it on, I feel like so strong, or so, like she was like, it like, changes her mentality. So now I might have to try it. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's funny because like I've got a lot of people that answer the door because they think I'm a construction worker, not a door to door. So I seriously like I believe it has given me some more sales just because of it. But anyway, going back into that, like I have a construction vest on. I'm like, you know what? We're just in the area. We just ran the fiber. We're only here for a few days with my technicians, and this is where I create the urgency. I'm like, so while I'm here, I'm not, passing out flyers, and I'm not, you know, giving out cards. I'm actually filling up our route because if you fill up our route either Thursday or Friday, we'll go ahead and take off that install. And
Mhm.
then on top of that, you can't get this by calling in or online. We'll actually give you a free month of service.
Yeah.
So if either Thursday or Friday would work, we'd love to get you set up while we're here, waiving all the fees, And so usually that's kind of how I like to. I don't say I say I'm not the flyer boy,
Yeah.
and I'm here just these days, and I create urgency. So,
No, I like
um,
that. That's kind of what I do too in terms of the creating the urgency and telling them like, hey, I'm going to take care of the install fees. I'm going to take care of the first month, and I'm only here for this amount of time. That tends to get people to sign faster. And also
yeah,
telling them that you're batching them with their neighbors. Like I've had people, stop me when I get to the calendar and be like, well, if so and so's on Wednesday, like I want to be on Wednesday too, type of
yeah,
thing. So
yeah, yeah. Do the whole bandwagon effect, like dropping
yeah.
neighbors' names and like, oh, they're the Jones are doing it. Oh, I got to get on that bandwagon too. So, yeah, I love that. Urgency is huge in this job. Okay, so say I got one for you. So yeah, that all sounds good and all, but I don't do anything without telling my spouse. So
Mhm.
can I just get your number and I'll call you back once I talk to him?
Yeah. So, I mean, most people don't really care who their internet provider is,
Yeah,
as long as it's working properly and it's not costing you an arm and a leg. But your spouse is at work, right? I'll just stop back by at, 7 or 8 when they get back off. Because I like to pull back.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know how much you do, but I find,
yeah,
especially with fiber, it really works well for me. Um, I don't know. I think maybe people just need a second to breathe sometimes, and then they go back and they look like at their bill because most of the time they don't know what they're paying, and then they
yeah.
compare what I was saying to them, and they, will be like, "Hey, I actually do want this. Like, let me call you up and get it done."
Yeah, I agree with you. There's times where you got to pull back and like people
Yeah,
appreciate that when they're like, yeah, I get it. I have a spouse or a significant other.
yeah,
You don't want to upset them at the end of the day. But one question I do like to push it just a little bit just to
yeah.
see. But sometimes I'll say, well, if they were here, you know them better than anyone, right? And then
Mhm.
I say, if they were here right now with us and they knew that they were going to save $30 off their bill and get their internet 2 times, 3 times faster, what do you think they would say if they were here? And then
Yeah.
be like, oh, they'll probably say, yeah. I'd be like, okay. Yeah, we'd probably both agree it'd be like it's like a no-brainer. So let's just go ahead and get you a spot reserved on the route.
Yeah.
And then when they come home tonight, if they have any questions, here's my number, and you can call me and I'll answer any questions they have. And then
Yeah.
some of the times they'll be like, oh, that's fine. But again, like if there's pushback at that point, then I go, okay, yeah, I'll come back. Like
Yeah.
totally agree with that. And
I like
sometimes like I'll even have them call the spouse because they're just like, oh, they're at the park, and I'm like, oh, do you care if you just call them right now and just run it by them and see what they think? And sometimes
that.
they won't, but sometimes they will, and it's surprising. They like call them like, hey, do you want to do the blah blah blah? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and they end up doing it right over the phone. So have you had that happen before?
I've definitely had that happen before.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's always really funny, especially when the spouse is like super into it. They're like, "Why haven't you signed up already?" Like yelling on the other side of the phone. I'm like, "Okay. Sounds like
yeah,
this one's going through."
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So here's one I wrote down. I'm in a contract with my current provider, so we run into that sometimes. So a lot of times I'll say, most cancellation rates, they're prorated. How long have you had it for? And if it's usually over a year, most of the time they're out of a contract. And so that's when I'll bring up the gift card, because with Brightspeed we have gift cards, and I'll be like, I'll kind of like hold the gift card in my back pocket, like just in case. Because sometimes when you bring that up too soon, they're like, oh, gift card. But if you like find out later they have a cancellation fee or something, you can use that to your advantage. So I'll say,
Yeah.
listen, to help you out with that cancellation fee, it's probably just $10 per month they have left in your agreement. So
Yeah.
if it's only been 7 months, you probably only have like 5 months left. So worst case scenario, you might have to pay $50, but to go ahead and help you out with that, I'll get you a $100 or $200 gift card, depending on what package they go with right now. But I'll get you a $100 gift card, and that will take care of more than that, and then that way you don't have to worry about the cancellation fee. So usually I'll bring up something like that. Is there anything that you say about like, oh, I'm in a contract with my current provider? Anything that you say?
Honestly, sometimes I have them pull up their account, like
Okay.
on their phone, and a lot of the times they aren't, and they're just getting like promotional pricing still, and they think that
Oh,
that's the contract. So
okay.
that tends to help too, because then I can be like, look, see, it's not a contract, you're just on promotion, and in 2 months it's gonna get bumped up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And most of the time, like they know that their promotion is going to wear off. What's cool about
Yeah,
Brightspeed is we don't do a promotion. I mean, it's not like it's just the price is what it is, and so it
yeah.
doesn't go up, and people love that. So yeah, that's awesome. So
Mhm.
we run into this quite a bit. I have a bundle, right? So oh yeah, I got my internet, but it's all bundled with my TV and whatever. So when someone brings up, oh, they have it all bundled, what do you usually like to say?
Honestly, I kind of feign shock a little bit. I'm like, oh gosh, you have a bundle, like.
Like it's a
God,
bad
like, what are
thing.
you paying with that? Because most of the time, if you've got a bundle, you're paying over like 200, right? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, you know, well, I'll just tell them like, honestly, you're overpaying for what it is, right? Right now, you're overpaying for your internet, and your TV is probably 150 of that. It doesn't need to be. It could probably be half of that as well. And then I go and actually like break down all of the numbers for them. But yeah, I tell them that they're paying way too much if they've got a bundle with
Yeah.
one of the big traditional companies.
Exactly. I totally agree. One thing I like to say is like unbundling is the new bundle. Like because people feel all like cozy and honky dory with their bundle. Oh, I got a bundle, and be like, yeah, and you're getting
Yeah,
bundled over the coals,
you're
raped over
getting
the coals.
fleeced so hard.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, usually it's hunky dory for the first year, but when it goes up over $200, if you
Hmm.
unbundle, you might lose like a five, maybe a $10 discount at most. But you're
Hmm.
spending like $50 to $100 more than what you need to. So
Yeah.
unbundling is the new bundle. All your neighbors are actually unbundling, and so basically you can just unbundle and it will save you $50, $60 instead of bundling saving you
Hmm.
money. So it's like the opposite of what people think.
Exactly. And half the time they're not even they don't need the bundle.
Yeah.
Because some of them, they make you have like a home phone and people don't
Uh-huh.
use their home phones. And then they'll have the cable package, but they're like, "Oh, I watch like 3 shows on the cable package." I'm like, "You're spending all this money for something you don't even use."
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
pitch them on YouTube TV or Hulu TV because it's like what $80, and right now they're
Yeah.
paying like 200 for their Dish Network or Direct TV or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And I love it when you run into someone that has a phone and
Mhm.
internet, and like, I don't use my phone, and they're like paying
Oh my
like
God,
over,
yeah.
and you're like, this is gonna be like a no-brainer. So
I know. Those
yeah,
are always my favorite. I'm like, oh, your
yeah,
price just went so far down. I'm like always so happy.
yeah. They're like, oh, you mean I don't need a phone? You're like, nope. They just like start jumping off the walls, like, oh wow, I thought you had to have a phone this whole time.
I
Yeah,
know.
those are the best. So all right, so let's do one more. So yeah, I just don't want new cable lines ran all over my house, and I don't want holes drilled through my walls and stuff,
Mhm.
or buried trenched lines in my yard. How do you usually like to respond to that?
So typically we're outside, right? And I'll just point to if you can see it, I'll just point to the
Yeah,
junction box and be like, oh, it's going to go straight through, the same junction box that you have. So it's not like it's going to be, a bunch of lines everywhere, anything crazy like that.
yeah,
Um, with the buried ones, I just mentioned to them, like it's just this tiny little sliver of a line, you're
yeah.
not even going to notice it. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Make it seem
yeah.
like it's not a big deal. It's standard. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like to say, yeah, we care a lot about the cosmetics. We're not going to make it look all shabby and like put a huge line in like a big old canyon in your yard. People think you're going to put like
Yeah.
a huge crevice. Like you said, I like the sliver wording, but yeah, I usually like to say, yeah, our technicians will come through and they'll do a pre-installation walkthrough. I like to use that word,
Hmm.
pre-installation walkthrough, and they'll walk through and tell you everything you're going to do before they set it up and make
Hmm.
sure you're kosher with everything. And if you're not, just give me a call or just let me know and we can work it out. But yeah, so basically when they show up, they're going to make sure you agree to everything they're doing and you're happy with it. And like you said, Jessica, like, yeah, all it is just replacing the old line, the old copper line with the new fiber one. So they're going
Yeah.
to run it the same way, just comes into the house the same way into the modem. There's nothing
You won't
crazy
even.
or new. Yeah, we're not going to poke a bunch of holes in your house and make it flood. Yeah, we have insurance, so there's nothing to worry about. And then I like to bring up the neighbors, be like, yeah, the Johnsons, the Andersons, the Smiths, whatever. We've all done them. There's been no issues. We've done over hundreds and hundreds of homes in this area. There's been no issues with the installer, any
Yeah.
issues with the way they've done it, and most of the time that will calm them down. So
Yeah.
yeah, perfect. Yeah. So any other closes or any other objections that you run into that you think we haven't discussed that you usually run into?
God, what else do people say?
Yeah, one thing
Well,
is
those are the
like,
big ones, right? Like the spouse
yeah,
is the big one, the bundle is the big one. I feel like those are the main two that I ever end up getting.
yeah,
Uh,
it's funny, like it's kind of hard to think because like with
yeah,
with fiber, there's not a whole lot of like objections that you like. It's just like,
yeah.
is it fast? Is it cheaper? Okay, But yeah, I think we hit it pretty good. Those are the
Mhm.
main ones that I could think of. I think auto pay was one of the big ones, but once
Yeah,
they're cool with that, usually there's no other. If it's faster and cheaper, you're good to go, right? So
yeah. The funny thing too with autopay is like people will start complaining about the autopay while they're like going to get their card, and I'm like, you can just keep complaining about it because you're getting the card. So I don't know what to tell you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, there's really nothing you can do except tell them there's other options.
yeah.
PayPal.
Exactly. Honestly, I think the third party welcome call is worse than any objection.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like they keep adding stuff to it
Yeah,
too.
that's probably like the no, not to knock Brightspeed. I know they got to like make sure they have all their
Right.
ducks lined up with, but yeah, some of those calls is like kind of like, okay, just to warn you, they're gonna go through all these screens that they have to make sure you're kosher on. Yeah. So anyway, awesome. So to kind of finish up, what advice do you have to new reps that are like looking at doing this job, like that want to get into it? Like any advice you have for them to getting started or things that they can do to be successful?
Yeah. Number one, I would say is just like know your pitch. Like just know it like forwards, backwards, inside out, all of that. Um, and that's not to say that you're going to use your pitch exactly the same every single time on the door, but if you know it that well, then it makes you nimble enough to be able to like if you need to move parts around or kind of pivot depending on how the conversation's going.
Yeah.
um, knowing it knowing it 100%
Yeah.
is going to be really really helpful to you.
Yeah.
um,
I love that.
and I would also say try not to stress out. I know that's kind of hard,
Yeah.
especially when you're first starting and you're not good, so you're not making money. But the more you stress out, again, the more people are going to read it on your face, and it's going to affect you. So just like really being able to, take control of your mindset and know where you're at mentally and check in with yourself throughout the day so that you can make sure you have a good day.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah. So much of it is like staying positive and just having
staying
mental
positive.
clarity and just basically know that there's going to be ups and downs in this job, but
Hmm.
ultimately, if you keep positive, there's going to be more ups and it's going to pay off. So
Yeah.
awesome. So what are some things that you do that help you be successful in this job as far as maybe like how you like maybe your daily routine or
Hmm.
things that you do to keep yourself focused and successful? Can you talk about maybe one or two of those things that contribute to your success?
Yeah. So it might come as kind of a shock, but I'm kind of lazy on the doors, and so I've created all these little like games and like sayings with myself to like keep myself moving forward. Like one night when we were doing like a blitz with
Mhm.
me and some of the guys, we watched this movie, and the guy in the movie, he's like, just let me get one more, just let me get one more. And so I
Yeah.
took that onto the doors with me for like the next week. Actually, I still do it. If I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here, this is hard, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, let me just get one more, let me get one more.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always do.
That's
Um,
awesome. Yeah, just you can always
yeah.
do a little bit more, right?
Oh, yeah. But
You
I
can
mean,
always
always
push
just like
yourself.
finding little, I find little like tricks and games for myself to play. That way I will stay tenacious because I know it can be a slog sometimes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, there's some things that sometimes I'll bring like motivational quotes on my phone. Like I'll take a snapshot of like I'll go to Google Images and I'll put like motivational quotes or there's some cheesy ones on YouTube. Sometimes when I'm like driving out to area, I'll put motivational video and it'll be like, "You got this. You are not weak." And I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right." As I'm driving out. Just like those easy ones will help. Yeah, also I like to split up the day. Like I'll be like, "Okay, I got to get one before noon, or I got to get one before 2." So
Mhm.
instead of running like a marathon, I've talked about this before, but I
Yeah.
break it up in like 5 4 or 5 5Ks, right? Like instead of a
Hmm.
marathon. So yeah, there's definitely like a lot of mind tricks you can play with yourself to stay
Yeah.
motivated.
And I think breaking it down, that's such a good point too, because like I'll
Mhm.
set goals for myself, like, oh, I want to do 25, 30 sales this week, and then you go through Monday and you do two sales and you're like, oh crap, like what am I going to do? But if you
Yeah,
just break it down and it's like, in order to do 30 over the week, I just have to do like two in the morning every single day, or something
yeah,
like that. Like it makes it so much easier. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Hmm.
and so much of this job is like a numbers game, right? Like the
Hmm.
longer your fish is out in the pond, the more likely you're going to catch fish. So it's just
Hmm.
like you got to think to yourself. It's like if you actually look at the numbers and do like maybe record what your closing ratio is. Sometimes I'll be like, how many people does it take for me to close a deal? And usually, if it's a really good area, maybe 1 out of 7, I usually can close. 1 out of 5 sometimes.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a little bit worse. 1 out of 10. But I
Yeah.
know if I want to get like 7 sales a day, I gotta at least talk to 70 people. So how
Yeah.
long is it gonna take me I can't talk to 70 people in 3 hours. I
Right.
can't expect to get 7 sales and some guys can, some girls can. But yeah, so it's a numbers game and
Hmm.
it comes to like back to like how long is your pole in the pond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I
I'll
think, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
The other thing too is like working the crap out of an area. Like I feel
Mhm.
like if you haven't gone through like every street in a neighborhood at least like 4 times, then you should still be going back to that neighborhood. You know,
Yeah, for sure. It's like and
hmm
you can bandwagon more, right? Drop names.
you can bandwagon more. You hit all the different times of day, different days of the week. Like there's always just different cars and different driveways for you to go
Exactly.
talk to. You know.
And what's cool is like people will notice the bright speed trucks out there and they'll be like, "Oh
Hmm.
yeah, I saw you guys down the street." So it's funny. I've gotten callbacks because people are like, they don't want to feel left out. They're like, "Oh, I see your bright speed trucks everywhere. I guess I'll call them back." Yeah, one of my sales buddy always said the two things that he hates is starting a new area and leaving an area. So, because like
Yeah.
when you're starting one, you're fresh, you don't know anyone, and then leaving one, you're like, "Oh, it's so good, I don't want to leave it," right?
Yeah, and then I sometimes will like go back after a week or so, and I'm like, wait a minute, I kind of really did beat the crap out of this one. Like, there's nothing left for me here.
I know, like you knock this person's house like 10 times, they finally answer, what? They see you on their doorbell camera. This is the 10th time. What do you want? Like I knew you were inside. I just knew that it took 10
I just
times.
wanted to say hi. How's your internet?
How are you on like doors that have no soliciting signs? Do you knock those, or you just kind of like avoid the confrontation? Or...
So I do this goofy thing, which
Yeah,
surprisingly works. But
yeah,
especially if they've got like a Ring camera, I'll just like
yeah.
walk up to their door and I'll like stare, like blatantly stare at their sign for about 10 seconds and then just like stare at my iPad and just play around with it. And eventually they usually will come outside and they'll be
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I saw this sign. I didn't want to knock. But now that you're here," I just go into it.
Have you ever done a cell over the Ring camera? That's
I've seen a couple. I really don't though. I feel
yeah,
goofy
it's
talking to the
annoying.
Ring cameras.
Yeah, and they come in, they chime in, they're like, and it's like delayed, and you're like, did you hear
Mhm.
that? And then they come in, and you're like, no, did you hear it? And it's like, back,
Yeah.
what? Say that again. Yeah, but I got halfway through a cell on a Ring camera, and they finally came out. I'm like, would this be easier if you just came outside? They're like, yeah, I guess. I'm like, why didn't you just come out from the get-go? Call. Yeah, sometimes I avoid like ringing those. I'll just knock, and then they get annoyed. They're like, why didn't you ring it? So, but yeah, good
Oh
time.
yeah, I didn't even think about that. It doesn't pick up on their phone unless you actually touch the.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I always like to, when I see no soliciting signs, I usually like to play dumb. But sometimes it's like blatant right in your face, like right next to the doorbell, so there's no way you can't see it.
Right.
But sometimes I'll knock and they come out like, didn't you see the sign? Most people don't care anyways.
Hmm.
But I'll be like, oh, in while I was knocking, I noticed it like mid knocking. I didn't want to like doorbell or like knock and then run. So, and then I'll go, oh, like what internet do you have? Like I just
Have you
kind of
ever
play dumb.
you have someone like with a no soliciting sign, they like rage when they come out and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read." And they're just like, "Wait, what?"
That's why I have a door to door job because I can't read. No, yeah, like so it's funny. A lot of
Yeah.
reps will let that psych them out, but if you just kind of play dumb, most people don't care. And sometimes it's from the previous homeowner; they just left it up there.
Yeah.
Anyway, good stuff. Well, it's been a blast having you on, Jessica. I'm so glad I got to meet you and get to know you a little better and your background and get some takeaways on how you handle some of these objections and things that you do to make yourself successful. So it's definitely been a pleasure having you on. So.
Thanks, Jared. It's been a pleasure being here, and I'm glad I
Yeah.
got to meet you too.
Yeah, for sure. And
Uh,
anytime you need anything from Embark, like Leeds area, we're always here to help out. Sometimes we're a little bit slow answering, but we're trying to get better on that. So
yeah, I think you're fine. I think you're fine.
it's going good. Okay, good to hear. We like the feedback that things are going well. So, well, let's go ahead and end this with some more jive.
Oh, are you gonna rap again? I mean, you
Maybe
have to. I need
I
an
got to
encore
redeem
performance.
myself. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, getting warmed up here. I like to knock the doors. I like to have people come to the door. They are really cool. Oh yeah, I cannot rhyme. I do it all the time. I like this job. It's really like a mob. Okay, I'm done. I need to work a little bit harder on that,
I
but
feel like the first two lines were pretty. They were an improvement from last time.
well, I was like, at first I was like singing and not rapping, and I was like, wait, this is a song, not a. I was like getting some like melody going, and yeah. Anyway,
Oh,
hey, I tried. So
you tried. You did great. You should try that on the door someday.
yeah, come out and sing my pitch like I'm with fiber. Will you save money and get? Yeah, I don't think people would like probably call the cops on me if I.
Yeah, they'd be like, "This is a psychotic person outside. Help!"
They make their children go into their like shelter that they have with their like locks and everything on it, yeah, for the apocalypse. But anyway, hey, it's been awesome, Jessica. Thanks so much again.
Thanks.